Hello, and welcome to the Wealth Builders Podcast. In this episode, we bring you a special teaching from Billy's Money Mastery series on his patented Xxx Factor. We hope that you enjoy this 30,000-foot view of how to make sense of making money for making a difference. This week's episode will be a little bit different in that we are making it interactive for all of our listeners. So please visit www.wealthbuilders.org to get a free download and follow along while Billy teaches his Xxx Factor. Enjoy the show.
Are you ready to invest in yourself today? Welcome to the Wealth Builders Podcast, where investment leader Billy Epperhart teaches you how to build wealth through applied biblical wisdom. Scripture says in Deuteronomy 8:18, "Remember the Lord, your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth." At Wealth Builders, our goal is to teach you how to build wealth through applied biblical wisdom in your finances, your business, and your investments. Now, let's join Billy Epperhart.
Welcome to Lesson 3 on the Money Mastery series. And this is one of my favorite lessons. We call it the Xxx Factor. And this is something that the Lord gave to me quite a few years ago to really help me see the whole picture on what wealth building really looks like. An example I use is I put up a picture of an elephant, and because the elephant, of course, is the largest animal alive. When you see an elephant, you know, some people come up and they grab the elephant by the tail, and somebody, if you were to do that, and somebody would ask you, what's an elephant like? And somebody would describe the tail and say, an elephant is like a rope. Somebody else comes up and touches the elephant on the side, and somebody else was to ask them, what's an elephant like? They would say, well, an elephant's like a wall. Someone else comes up and grabs the elephant by the trunk, and they ask, what's an elephant like? And they go, oh, an elephant's like a hose. But the truth is, an elephant is all of those things combined. So when we talk about the Xxx Factor, we want to talk about wealth building from a 30,000-foot view and do it where you're actually seeing the entire elephant, as it were, and understanding wealth building from that perspective. So, for example, we're going to teach later on in this series what we call the debt snowball. And we're going to teach how you can get out of debt, including your mortgage, in just 5 to 7 years. And so the debt snowball, for example, is a popular teaching that's also needed by many people to be able to get their finances straight. But many people, that's the only part of wealth building they know. They're only grabbing the tail. So that's why we call the theme of this series of Money Mastery, making sense of making money, right? For making a difference, the whole elephant. And so we're going to show you that. So the Xxx Factor looks like this. So this is a picture of the Xxx Factor. Now, in just a minute, I'm going to actually break this down for you and show you what all the dots that are on the slide there stand for. And I'm also going to show you how you build your own Xxx Factor for yourself that's personalized to you. Now, before I do that, though, I want to show you another diagram that I love to use when I'm teaching on Money Mastery that helps you look at money the same way. And I want to talk about the 3 levels of money, or the 3 kinds of money. And then each level of money actually so for example, level 1, for example, that we're going to show you in just a second, actually matches the first X. Level 2 actually matches the second X. Level 3 actually matches the third X. So I'm going to give you another perspective here, and then we're going to break down the Xxx Factor for you. So let's call this, what we're about to show you, what I call the 3 kinds of money. And here I'm using a diagram that'll show you the levels of money. We call this level 1, or the first kind of money is money that you work for, right? And so when we talk about the money that you work for, the purpose of this is the tithe and offering. It's used for asset building, and it's money that you would live out of. For example, it's how you live. But the type of income that it is, or the type of money, it's income, it's job income. In other words, you work and you get paid, and the normal person that fits in this category is employee or self-employed, and it's what we call non-leveraged income. right? So it's non-leveraged, and that's money that you work for. Then level 2 kind of money, which is the second kind of money, is money that works for you. And when we look at this one, the purpose of this one is the tithe. You always pay your tithes and offerings, whatever stream or level of income you have. But then you live, this is money that you actually learn to live off of. It's what I call foundational wealth. Now, the reason I call it that is, the reason I call it foundational wealth is because you're actually making money at this level that you don't have to work for. Now, I'm going to describe that better in just a second, okay? But it's where you have built some assets that are actually paying you. That's what level 2 is about. It's not that you have a job that's paying you. It's that you've actually built assets. That's the reason we call it foundational wealth. You also continue to build assets at this level, but the type of income, instead of it being a job, it's actually what we call asset income. The greatest illustration of that for you is that if you bought a single family house, right, and you bought it, and let's say you rehabbed it and you put it up to work, and then the money that comes off of that single family house actually is what we would call rent. That, and then the positive cash flow off of that is what we would call asset income. So let's say you made positive cash flow money you put in your pocket after all your expenses were paid. Let's say you made $300 a month. Well, that would be considered, in this illustration, asset income. Now, this is, in the category is your business owner or investor, but this is money that you manage, but it's not money you work for. And that's the difference. It's what we call money that works for you. So you actually now have assets like a rental house that's actually paying you money. And then level 3 is what we call money that works without you. And this is where you get to a point where you've built wealth at a point where you have plenty yourself to live on. And it's at this point the real purpose is you're giving everything away over and above what we call your target living allowance. So let's say, you say you can live, I'm just using an illustration. Let's say you say I can live on 100,000 a year. Somebody said I can't live on 100,000 a year. I can live on 250,000 a year. Or I live on 500,000. Whatever the number is, everything above what that target living allowance is above that. You literally learn to give away or invest away. And in this program, we're going to show you what we mean by investing away. We're going to show you that. But in this, the purpose is you're giving it all away. For example, the founder of Caterpillar, he was actually giving away 90% of his income, and he lived off 10%. Now, granted, the 10%, it was a large piece of a pie for a normal person, but he was giving away 90% of his income. Even Andrew Carnegie, when he began to build his wealth in the steel mills, he wrote down on a card, I want to spend the first half of my life making money, and I want to spend the second half of my life giving it all away. So the point of this is that money that works without you, that means you're able to give it away, but it also means you have enough wealth that you don't have to actually actively manage it. Somebody else is doing it for you. And so this type of income is what I call absentee asset income. What that is actually you have money that's coming in from an absentee income. That means somebody else typically is managing it for you. And when you're at this level, you're really an investor. You're not a manager, you're actually an investor. You sit back, other people are managing your assets for you. So that's a great place to be. So when we talk about the 3 kinds of money, this is something that we want you really to be aware of. But now, in the context of that, I want to take a minute to really talk about the Xxx Factor in a way that will help you understand. Now, many people have seen this picture of things, right? This picture of the Xxx. And behind me, I have a whiteboard. And on the whiteboard, I've already drawn a couple of dots. But I want to just point this out to you. And you also, I think, you may have a picture on the side of the slide. If not, you'll have one coming up here quick. But I just want to show you that on this side of it, what you actually have is you actually have what we would consider your monthly income. And so the monthly income that's here, let's say down here is $2,000. That means your monthly income is $2,000 a month. Or we have $4,000. That means your monthly income may be $4,000 a month, all the way up to the top at $10,000, which would be $10,000 a month. Now, if you're above $10,000 a month, you can just create your own chart and put that on there. But over here, you can see that I have some small black dots that are right above the 4K level. You can see those right here. And I have some small red dots that are right above that as well. Now let me tell you what that represents. That the average household in the U.S., the income's about $4,166. Okay, so that would be about $50,000 a year in income that comes in. That's the average American household, actually median household that's out there. Then, but we also in many Western nations, we actually spend more annually than actually comes in. Now remember, this is only for illustration purposes, but I want to take the time here to help you understand what this means and why it will help you see the whole elephant when it comes to wealth building. Now, so what I've done is I've got two markers here. I got a red one and I got a black one. And these are going to help us make the first X of the triple X. Okay? And when we do this, so if a household, the red, it represents your monthly expenses, and the black represents your monthly income. And the way you are to do this is down here on the bottom, I actually have each mark represents 1 month. And then you can see 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And each mark, the small marks, represent every month. So you can actually take a piece of paper. Now, for those of you that know how to do this on your computer, you obviously can do it on your computer. You can do it probably in an app if you want to do that. As a matter of fact, on the Wealth Builders app, we actually have a XXX chart. You can go in and build yourself on our Wealth Builders app. Just go to the Apple app site, or go to Google Play site, or wherever, and our apps are in there. It's a Wealth Builders app. You can Google it and find it, and you can actually build this chart in the app as well. But I want to show it to you like this so that you can see practically. So this is what my wife and I did. So we looked at our income the first month, and we came up and we would mark that income right here where that first dot is. So let's say I'm recording this right now as I'm talking to you in July of 2020. And so I would start with July, right? And I'd come up here and I'd look at, down here represents July, and I would say our income, as an example, is $4,166, right? And I would just do the first dot, not the second one. And then let's say my income was the same in August, then I would come here, find August down here, and I'd put the second dot in. Okay, put it right there. See that? So now I got two dots. But then I got to look at my expenses. And so when I look at my expenses and I'm checking that out, when I'm looking there, I come here with the red one. This is only so you can see it for illustration purposes. I go, oh, because of credit cards and consumer credit, I actually spent last month more than I brought in. Right? So let's say you go somewhere and you eat out a lot. But you're putting it on your credit card, but you don't really have the income to pay for it. Well, then you spent more that month than what you brought in. So this is only for illustration. So let's say this month you actually spent $4,800, right? And let's say maybe you even did that the next month. The whole idea behind this is that you now have something you can put up on a wall and start tracking your income and expenses. Now remember, we're going to talk about the whole elephant. Right now, when we're looking at this, the first X, which I'm going to show to you, we're only, say, for example, touching the trunk of the elephant. Okay, we're not seeing the whole elephant yet. We're simply touching the trunk. But most people, for example, if they just, for example, learn how to get out of debt, which is what the first X is going to represent, they think, man, I'm really cooking with grease. Well, you are cooking with grease, because I congratulate you for doing that. But getting out of debt is not the same thing as building wealth. Now, getting out of debt is positioning yourself better to be in a better position to build wealth, but it's not building wealth. And that's why, and by the way, we're going to teach you what we call the debt snowball. But I'm showing this to you because this is only an illustration, but in theory, let's say you took the debt snowball class, or you took another class on how to get out of debt, and let's say you started lowering your expenses. So your expenses started coming down each month. So let's say the third month, now my expenses are down. The fourth month, they're really coming down. See that? and then the next month they're coming down. And then over here, my income is pretty much staying the same. But let's say you listen to some teaching I did, and we'll talk about this in one of the lessons, but I'll give it to you now since we're talking about Xxx, is always remember you don't take time to the marketplace, you take value. So let me say it this way, you never get paid for time that you put in, you get paid for value. You get paid for the value that you put in the time. So let's say that you understood that and you learned that and you started really bringing value to the marketplace, and let's say your income actually started increasing. And now I got it going up pretty quick here, only for illustration purposes. But let's say, man, you really started taking off. And all of a sudden, your income started taking off. Now, that's pretty fast and pretty quick, but I'm doing it so you can see the X. And then you kept paying your debts off. You got out of debt. And now, all of a sudden, your expenses per month are going down, your income is coming up, and that's where the first X is formed. So we'll show you that here, for example. We'll do the same thing on the slide. As we do that, we're going to show you this first X forming. So here, you see the arrow that I have pointed, and it's at that point that the first X actually forms. Now, what do we do when we get there? And this is the thing that really where I begin to understand and see how this actually works. What we do when we actually get to the point of the first X, here's what this means. We actually have more money coming in per month now through our job income, level 1 income. We actually have more money coming in than we do going out. So watch this. This is our debt. Now, right in here is a gap, and that means we have more income than we do outgo. More income than we do outgo. Well, what do? Well, right in here in this gap, we start taking money from here, excess money we have. Now, do we go out and buy another piece of furniture, or do we go out and eat more? No. What we do is we start setting this money right in here aside. So down here, this month, we're going to set aside, let's say, $500. And we're going to set it aside to begin to build some kind of savings and use that to start acquiring assets that produce income. We're going to start buying assets that produce income with this. So something like a rental house would qualify. A rental piece of real estate would qualify. And I'm going to give you a list of 6 things that specifically would qualify as what we call the green dots. But remember now, this is only for illustration, and I know I'm being a little technical, but just imagine that you had a piece of white poster board on the wall. And just imagine that you were walking up on that poster board at the end of each month and tracking these dots. And imagine that you're on this white poster board now, you're putting a green dot in because you've put this money aside. You don't yet have income, right? But I'm going to let you start putting it aside. And what happens over a period of time is then you will start growing this income base that'll start coming in. And when I told you my money mastery story, I did this with real estate. So when I teach on real estate mastery, for example, which I'm not doing in this course, I show you, what if I could show you how to make $100,000 a year and do it tax-free? Now, I know that's kind of a big headline there. Well, yeah, I'd like to know that. But I just want to show you that as you begin to build assets, then income from those assets grows over a period of time. Now, because this is for illustration purposes only, 2 things I want to say. The first X up here, some of you, your red dot may already be down here. You don't need a first X. You've already got it. So you just start taking your excess. But many people who already have it don't now know how to invest it. This is where your investing starts coming in. So the way this will look, and this is exactly what Becky and I used to get where we wanted to get, we continued to do these dots just like this, and I'm going to skip for time here, just to get here. And then at some point, it'll actually probably won't go down quite that fast. Let me just change it here on the lesson. It'll probably be more like this. It'll start leveling out. And so these are your expenses. Your income's up here somewhere on your job. But now you've got assets that are producing income. And at this point, as they continue to grow, as this continues to move upward, this actually will pass your expense line. And when this passes your expense line, it's at this point that the second X forms, and you actually, at that point, become financially free. Now, let me explain what I mean by financially free. What I mean is you no longer have to go work a job in order to live. Now, many people who actually reach the second X actually continue to work and continue to have income at the first X. And so the thing that I want you to see that is really powerful in what we call the triple X, and I'll do my best here to bring another slide to help you see this for a second. You'll see that this second X, these green dots continue to grow, and it will actually be at this point, you become financially independent. And you no longer have to go to work if you don't want to. Now, I reached the second X, and I did it, as I've already stated in one of the lessons, all for the wrong reasons. I did it for myself. But the Lord began to show me it's about making sense of making money. So over here, we start making sense. We get ourselves in a financial position. And here, we start learning how to actually make money using assets that produce income. We get to the point where now our expenses, and people always ask me, well, Billy, how come the red dots keep going down? How come your living expenses go down? Because once you start really building assets, your house, for example, in theory, would be paid off. You wouldn't have a house payment. Now you still have taxes and insurance and maybe some maintenance, but you don't have the other. And then the second thing that happens with that, so that you understand, your cars get paid off. So now think about it. If you don't have a house payment and you don't have a car payment, what does it cost to live? I remember the first time Becky came to me when we got to the point, our houses are paid off, our cars are paid off, and she said, man, honey, we don't need a lot of money to live. To actually live, it goes way down. So when you get yourself in this position, but here's where making a difference really comes in. It's out here as this green dot, you continue to have income coming in, and let's just say you level out on the red, and you realize that all I need to live off of is about right here. What then happens is, and this is something that the Lord really showed me, is somewhere along here I still have income coming in. So instead of spending the money, I'm spending it here at this green right here in the gap. Now I start giving or investing away 100% above my target living allowance. So that means if I want to give to something, donate to something, I can do it. Or like we've done with Tricord Global, we actually took some of our green dots and actually made them blue dots. And we took the income off the blue dots and we invested them overseas to help people in developing nations. As a matter of fact, I started Tricord Global with a 7-figure donation. Now, that's a wonderful thing to do because you can take green dots and make them blue dots, and this becomes the Xxx Factor. You're still living good. You're still taking care of your family. You're not having to work if you don't want to, but now you're investing and or giving away for kingdom impact. That's really the story of the Xxx. Now, quickly, I want to show you on this slide and give you some examples of what the green dot in income actually looks like. So, for example, and we have a slide there for you to see, rent from real estate, for example, would qualify as income that is coming off of assets that you're able to put in your pocket. Another would be profits from a business. And for some of those that are really a little bit more sophisticated on your taxes, etc., it's really specifically what we call capital distributions from your business. Because your capital distributions, for example, and I know when I'm using that illustration, I'm doing it more from a U.S. perspective, United States, not because other Western nations have different laws, and then other nations have different laws. But since I'm teaching this standing in the U.S., I'm talking about capital distributions from a business. Then the third one would be like dividends from stock or primarily from stock. And that's not where you buy and sell stocks. That's actually stocks that pay you a dividend based on the number of shares that you own. And then our interest from bonds and CDs, or royalties, what we call royalties from intellectual property, from songs or books or whatever. And so the royalties you get off that would be what we would call second X income, or the green dots. And then royalties, for example, some of you out there, you have oil and gas. So royalties from oil and gas or minerals, those become the green line. Now, for example, gold and silver, which I own, wouldn't be considered the green line stuff because you're not getting paid. You're putting it in a safe or you're holding it somewhere else, and the price either goes up and down. But I like gold and silver as a defensive type investment, but it's not what we would call an example of the green line. The green dots are actually paying you monthly, quarterly, or annually some kind of income that you're making and that is produced there. So I want you just to see this for a second. This is what we call the XXX. And so the reason that I want to share that with you is you get that white poster board up, you put it on the wall, you mark it, and it helps you to be able to build the XXX for yourself.
We hope you learned something of lasting value today from this Wealth Builders podcast. If you'd like any tools, teachings, or resources mentioned in the podcast, you'll find them online at wealthbuilders.org. Wealth Builders exists to teach you how to build wealth through applied biblical wisdom in your finances, your business, and your investments. The Wealth Builders podcast is produced by Celine Williams, with music by Audio Jungle and narration by Greg Hunter. Wealth Builders is a nonprofit organization. We depend on your donations to keep this podcast running. Please consider donating to us on wealthbuilders.org.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Wealth Builders podcast. If you do not get your free download for this episode to follow along with Billy's teaching, please visit www.wealthbuilders.org to get your free download. Again, that's www.wealthbuilders.org to get your free download of Billy's Xxx Factor.